Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here. I hope you're having a great day. We're going to take a quick look at XRP. We're going to talk about validations and invalidations here in this range. We can see that this 215, 214 range held very strong as a resistance. And in fact, a lot of altcoins recently did very poorly when Bitcoin continued much higher here to push towards 88,000. Now it's pulling back. We're shorting Bitcoin at 88K anyway, so it's kind of expected. But how much lower is this going to go here? That's the question I'm getting. So we're just going to double check and evaluate that. Right now, we're pretty much at break even for our long position, considering closing it, but I really don't know if if we're going to lose that $2 range. So let's talk about kind of support and resistance levels and understand kind of what best practice is in situations like this when altcoins are performing poorly versus Bitcoin doing really well. Or at least tentatively doing really well with a Sunday night pump. And what was that? Anyways, taking a quick look here at the liquidation data first. I ask you to hit the like button, please, before you get started. Really appreciate that. We got less than 5% of people actually watching the videos, hitting the like button. And according to my comments, I get really good feedback here. So if you like it, why don't you like it? All right, thanks again. Appreciate that. I do appreciate you regardless of if you do that or not. That's not the reason for this. I want you to learn as much as you can. So there we go. All right, so let's take a look here. $2 to 204. That's kind of that lower range of support that we talked about previously. Keep in mind, liquidation isn't support, but it accumulates at support ranges. All right, so it takes one to have the other effectively. But at this point, we can recognize that that is a lower liquidation range. So if we get closer to 205, a sweep to $2 makes perfect sense. Okay, so boom, price wicks all the way down. That would be sensible considering I'm expecting 85K for Bitcoin to pull back here to that range. Okay, so if Bitcoin comes to 85,000, I think we're probably going to see that $2 mark hit for XRP. So it may suggest that closing our trade at break even is perhaps a good idea. Now, we do have liquidation above the price action. That's one thing. We'll talk more about that, but 215 is that strong resistance level we saw hold pretty well. But from a macro perspective, we have a little bit more incentive for the price to go lower than higher. But I do personally feel $2 is going to hold as a support, not only psychologically, but there's a lot of confluence there too. All that being said, liquidation delta is now at break even. So all this bullish pressure from Saturday and Sunday has essentially basically just dissipated. So if Bitcoin bounces off 87,000, I think XRP is going to be just fine. Bitcoin does have some confluence at 87,000, but it also has incentive for the price to go lower based on not just liquidation, but momentum, and obviously that fair value gap in the 85.5 to 87K range for Bitcoin. So under the guise that Bitcoin pulls back lower, we would see XRP pull back lower, right? That's the commonality here. But what we want to pay attention to over the next couple of days is how well does XRP hold this level as Bitcoin pulls back, and what's the areas of confluence. We take a look here. This is open interest. 210 is that heavy concentration just above the price, and roughly 205 just below. So 205 to 210 is kind of that little tentative range that we're stuck within if you exclude the candle wicks here. So take a look at the daily time frame. This is something that's pretty much par for the course. Most coins are showing this right now, but this one is no exception. There's nothing really bullish about XRP at this point. I think XRP is probably still more likely to go down based on its overall macro trend. That's the concept. Now we take a look here, of course, at the RSIs. Everything's pretty much still showing us that we're fairly well bearish. We do have money flow index pushing up, but that was just that extra volume flowing in from yesterday. I think that's a bit of a false positive. Plus low volume weekends, we can't really take that into consideration. So let's take a look here at the 4-hour time frame and recognize that we're below a lot of moving averages. Generally speaking, this is a bearish type of scenario. So I'm not proposing you short this coin, but it's probably best to wait to take a long. That's just kind of the concept there. But once more, I've been wrong plenty of times in the past. This range is holding pretty well. It just feels like we're going to retest this lower $2 range first before we go up. Okay, and that's just mainly because I feel like Bitcoin's going to pull back a little bit further before it goes up too. That's just kind of the concept. But it may have already done so, right? Because Bitcoin did pull back pretty aggressively here, only to fill half its fair value gap, and it's already back up to 87. So there's definitely some things going on here that none of us are fully aware of. Having said that, from the 4-hour time frame, we're seeing a bit of a divergence. We're moving back towards 50 in the RSI. If we hold above 50 in the RSI here today, I think that might be a different story. It does require Bitcoin to do well, but for the most part here, I think that we're probably still more likely to go down just based on how manipulated the market is. You can almost guarantee Bitcoin is going to continue to pull back now that the market makers are selling their positions. And it's just one of those situations where it's like, I mean, come on, we got to expect the worst and hope for the best, but not be unrealistic and think that this coin is going to pump. Now, you're probably wondering, why the heck did you take a long if that's the case? Well, this coin is highly manipulated, and we had a power of 3 trade chart set up originally. I'll have to update the charts to kind of show you what that means, but simply put, that's tentatively invalidated. And a lot of times you just kind of got to walk away from a coin if it's not going to continue to do well. And at this point, it hasn't performed as impressively as I expected. So for those of you who have a long position open with an average entry of about 207, I think that's our entry. Consider closing in profit here. And at this point, I'll probably do the same thing myself, depending on how today's price action responds. But overall, this is nothing crazy and outrageous. But for the most part, it's simple to say. But now that we have some volume here, I think there's a decent chance we go lower. But there is possibility with our local point of control at 207, we go up here too. So honestly, when you have divergences on Bitcoin and altcoins are performing poorly, it's going to seem a lot more sensible to wait for a long position or to close long if you're in one right now. That's just kind of the concept. More importantly, that is the safer way to trade. Okay, it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It just implies that you're probably less likely to get destroyed because you're walking away in the green. Okay, cool. I hope that makes sense. I described it correctly. I'll go ahead and post a playout chart on our Twitter, Telegram, and Discord. Be sure to check that out. Thank you again for everyone coming over there and liking all the content. Really deeply appreciate that. But if you could, folks, just like everything that you see on my Twitter, and I like everything you see on YouTube, and it'd be phenomenal results here for the community, so we can get more people, on board with the better way to trade, which is just honestly not being an emotional idiot. Simple as that. All right, have a good rest of your day. We'll look forward to seeing the next one. Thanks so much again for your time. Take care.